Joining me via Skype is Captain Umar Aliyu Babangida, retired. He is the CEO, Goldwater and River Sand Consult. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning.
The last 2 weeks, when the first lockdown was implemented, towards the end, we saw a rise in cases of insecurity in terms of attacks, hoodlums terrorizing communities, and then the lockdown has been extended. A lot of Nigerians are concerned that perhaps this might also continue. I wonder what you think or what you make of the recent issues that have arisen with regards to insecurity.
Good morning. Thank you. If you recall, at the onset of the first phase of the lockdown, I spoke about the fallouts, as it were, that should be expected. And one of the fallouts I mentioned was that if not properly taken care of, hunger will force the lockdown to crash under its own weight. When people have to stay home, there's going to be a strain on their livelihoods, there's going to be a strain on cash and so many other things, as I said earlier. And what contingency plans are made for these things will determine whether in the long run they comply or you end up with what we call a civil disobedience. We mustn't underestimate the power of hunger in this situation. Hunger itself, if we all agree that a hungry man is an angry man, hunger itself can rout efforts we've put in for the past 2 weeks. People who cannot feed will move out. In my native dialect, we have a proverb that says, hunger can make a man beg his enemy. So most of these young ones you see on the streets are just those ones who pre-COVID-19 lockdown used to be menialists. Menialists in the sense that they do one or two things out there, menial jobs, put a little money in their hands, and then from hand to mouth. Now, if there isn't that hunger, that office of nature we refer to as hunger, is going to force them out to go get what they will eat. And because they are already sore and hungry, when they meet up with resistance, there's going to be violence. You will see them in their 20s and 30s initially in areas. As they grow in number, they are going to get bolder. It's simple. It's a social thing.
But the government, if I may interrupt your line of thought, the president announced palliative measures, and at this time he extended it to 3.6 million persons. Isn't that a measure that should also help curtail these activities or stem the tide when it comes to violence?
The president is too far-flung. I've always said it. The president cannot sit in Abuja and give us palliative measures in a broadcast, and we take it hook, line, and sinker that the measures have gotten to the last man in his home, in his room, in a lockdown. I would have taken the serious palliative measures he mentioned more seriously if the governor of Lagos State had mentioned it. On my street, I had to do the palliative measures. On my street, I had to go out and call these errand boys together.
Up with palliatives, it fed about 200,000 persons within the state.
I laugh because what I'm trying to tell you is that these palliatives for me are verbiages. Take a stroll into the streets of downtown Lagos, and you begin to see that the federal government is too far-flung to monitor no lockdown in no state.
All right, we have to leave the discussion at this point. Thank you for speaking. Joining me via Skype is Captain Umar Aliyu Babangida, retired, CEO, Goldwater and River Sand Consult. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, let's quickly look at efforts being made by Lagosians, or would I say residents of these communities that are being attacked by the hoodlums. You see a lot of them coming together for night vigils, ensuring that their communities are secured. Is this a reflection of their trust in the security of the state?
Not at all. It's actually a reflection of what has happened and what I want to call the fallouts we need to anticipate. The people, the hoodlums you are seeing on the streets are not entirely all hoodlums. These are people who have been forced by hunger to come out on the streets. Now there's a socio-dynamic aspect to that. You see, as I always say, we are social in nature as humans. So when 10, 20, 30 people find themselves on the streets and they have one common underlying cause, hunger, they tend to become bolder as their numbers increase. And when they become bolder as their numbers increase, the residents, who definitely are going to be the end targets, will also have to come together and resort to self-help. But the underlying factor there, the key to the crisis, to the tension there, is food. Our policemen are doing their best, but I hope we understand that we do not have an infinite number of policemen. We have a fixed number of policemen. And the way it is going with these groups, you know, spreading
Well,
around town.
Well, at this point, the Air Force, the DSS, the police, the military are joining forces together to patrol various communities that have witnessed these attacks in recent days to ensure that these hoodlums do not carry out their activities. Is that a holistic approach to dealing with this?
It's not a holistic approach. The reason is simple. I'll put it to you clearly here that hunger is stronger than fear. Hunger is stronger than fear. If we get to certain levels in this hunger index, these same people, they're out there to ensure do not perpetuate harm, will actually face off with them. Hunger is one of the strongest forces the offices of nature can impose on anyone. It can override any kind of thing you can think of, any kind of sense you can think of. So basically what we need to do is, as I said earlier, micromanage the lockdown. We've taken lockdown, copy and paste from the countries that do it. That's okay. But then the contingencies and the structures to actually manage a lockdown we don't have. Since we do not have those contingencies, like data, for example, what we need to do now is to micromanage the lockdown. Put another way, we have to do it manually. Manual lockdown is going to be a tall order for the law enforcement agencies. It's going to be a tall order for all involved, but it's our best bet.
Perhaps you might want to expatiate on what you meant by manual lockdown, because the intention of government is to actually keep people safe from contracting the virus, except there are other strategic ways that you could suggest to the government.
You see, keeping people safe from contracting the virus itself is key. But how you set about doing it is what will decide whether you succeed or not. Now, what I mean here by micromanaging the lockdown is straightforward. Our governor was already in the basis of setting down what would have assisted us here to micromanage our lockdown. Unfortunately for me, I say unfortunately, the federal government started the lockdown. The federal government went like 5, 6 steps ahead. If the lockdown had been managed the way the governor was doing it, the paces which we needed to have taken and the palliatives and safety nets would have been keyed into place, then gradually a lockdown would have come up. Now, at this moment, as I speak to you, we have to micromanage the lockdown in the sense that the food, that's the underlying factor. The food has to get as close as possible under supervision to the consumer. And how do we do this? We can only do this if we put the local government chairman and the councillors, their toes, they have to be the epicenter. The epicenter. The federal government really cannot manage this lockdown on ground zero here. The real people that will manage this lockdown are the people on ground zero, and closer to ground zero are the local government chairmen and their councillors. And if you want to go down beneath the councillors, probably the ward heads. So if you can be able to get these people and give them the resources they require, you're going to see a micromanaging of this concept. Now, let me give you an example with myself. I'm staying somewhere where we have upward of like 70, 80 youth. There used to be manialists pre-COVID, and they started coming out to beg. What did we do? We preempted the situation. I came out, spoke to some residents, and we agreed to give them a meal every day. Now they have taken ownership of our streets. They are like, this area is our area, and we are now relying on them as vanguards. There are eyes and ears out there. And if they see other miscreants or urchins from other places coming in, what do they do for us? They give us information, and we have a plethora of phone numbers to call, which the police can respond to. That helps the police. The police cannot spread itself over every street in Lagos. So basically, if we micromanage this lockdown, you find a situation where even the councillors and the ward heads have their area of responsibility, food-wise, resource-wise, communication-wise, awareness-wise, security-wise. It becomes a bit easier.
All right.
But at this point,
All right, Captain Umar Ali, we must leave the discussion here now. Thank you for speaking with us.